after looking through some more videos online and just running through some of the things that you do see online, to be honest, I've kind of just, you look at some stuff and admittedly it is funny. It's got its own funny emphasis on it. Not just that, but you feel there's always a degree of comedy. To be honest, I've kind of come to the conclusion with a lot of this stuff that most things can be taken in satire, in a sense of comedy, and you've got to be able to take that. But I also think there's a lot of other stuff as well. There's a lot of stuff that we're getting ultra sensitive about, honestly. I understand we all get pissed off. Fuck, I'm one who can get notoriously pissed off with a situation and definitely have got pissed off in the past. I don't get as pissed off now, but I definitely have those situations where that happens. I've kind of like steered towards the end of, I'm not ultimately anti-feminist. I'm sort of in the middle, sort of neutral, Switzerland sort of thing. But I'm not really there, per se. I'm sort of standing on my 2 feet, thinking to myself, I won't deny that women definitely get sexualized and objectified. There's no argument there. But not as much as you would think. Women, definitely in modern society, is definitely something that we focus on. But it is in our DNA and it is in our biology to be attracted to the opposite sex, in the sense of sexual attraction, physical attraction, things like that. So that's pretty much a given. You can't argue that isn't there. And I'm kind of like, we're getting so extreme with some of the political views we have these days, like, whether it's trans cis or whatever, or transgender, or a combination of those things. I've concluded that I guess in the long run, it comes down to how sensitive you're feeling about something and how triggered you get by something. Things that definitely do trigger me and have triggered me in the past would be pedophilia, and I definitely don't condone it, and I never would. And to be honest, I kind of get pissed off with the fact that some of that stuff is coming up on social media and it's being generally sexualized as a sexual orientation, which is bullshit. I'm sorry, but that's just total bullshit. I can't see how that would even work, to be honest. And I kind of went, what the fuck? Pedophilia is not a sexual orientation. That's bullshit. It's total bullshit. I can't understand why we live in a society where that would be acceptable, or when it would become acceptable. And I'm yet to understand what the fuck is going on with some of these idiots who seem to think it is. There's definitely a lot of people out there, but I mean, it's kind of like, what the fuck? Seriously? Like, sorry, I'm trying to get this camera angle right, but that's alright. I've learned a lot from just studying stuff on the internet and looking at tweets and posts and things like that. And there's definitely a lot of shit going on that you definitely don't see every day. I see a lot of troll posts and everything else, and troll posts are typical troll posts. Somebody has a go at someone for, being a particular way or having a particular look or whatever, or things like that. I mean, I get that, that's just general banter stuff. But there's also mean and nasty stuff that people tend to attack others without directly looking at the person. So thinking, well, okay, hold on a second, I should probably reel myself back in a little bit and, step away from some of that stuff. But the truth is, I also think there's stuff you can laugh at as well. There's definitely stuff you can laugh at and you can just have an opinion and a bit of a joke about. It's kind of like, what is it? It's just, it's ridiculous. Like, I don't know. There's tons of stuff that people have a go at each other for. We as a society seem to think that it's okay to have a go at people. I think it's okay, but I think there's some subjects that definitely should probably be not off limits, but they should definitely, you should take into consideration what you're saying to a person, because it may affect them psychologically. I'm somebody who up until a little while ago, I would take things a little more seriously sometimes on the internet than I would usually. And I'm not doing that as much now. I'm just more not paying attention to it and just ignoring it most of the time. I just scroll on and I don't worry about it, to be honest. And I've kind of come to the conclusion that a lot of the times, if you get too offended about something, it's going to make your life worse. It's going to make you feel like shit. And that's just life. You can't inevitably avoid idiots or dickheads, and you can't avoid people doing stupid shit either. Now, I mean, to be honest, there's kind of the people doing stupid shit on the internet too. I mean, there's just right out dumb shit that you just think, what the hell were you thinking when you did that? What was, like there's some people trying to go viral with doing certain stupid stunts and everything else and stuff like that. And it's kind of like, well, what the fuck? What the fuck? Seriously, what was in your mind when you decided to do that? I'll be honest. I don't particularly give a shit most of the time about most things. It's very rare that I do care about a lot of things. Most of the time I'll just take it in my stride and I'll, water off a duck's back sort of thing. Admittedly, though, I've got on a couple of troll accounts and I've trolled people and I've felt a little bit emotional about some things and I've had to go at people themselves for being shitheads. And I have done that in the past. I don't do it all the time, but I do it occasionally. And I've kind of just what the fuck, seriously, what is going through some people's heads, especially with some of this stuff, and how they think, The thoughts of the human race have got very mixed up in a lot of ways. Not just the thoughts, but how we convey to each other, how civil we are to each other, how we act like normal, mature adults. That's one thing that's got out of hand. Just, not being mature to each other anymore. And that's kind of what the fuck is going on in people's heads, that they seriously have to get up in arms about things. But I have got up in arms about some things in the past, especially things I've seen, whether it's government political policies or other shit that I've seen that's been going on. And I kind of think nobody should be arrested or put in jail for their opinion. That's kind of stupid. I mean, that's ridiculous. It's like thought police. That's fucked. I think sometimes growing a pair of balls, in that sense, I mean, I know that's a typical male thing to say, but just growing a bit of a set and just growing a thicker skin is probably the better option than trying to deal with all these dipshits. Because to be honest, you're going to deal with a lot of dipshits on the internet. You're going to be pissed off half the time if you don't take into consideration that these guys, purely it's out of ignorance or purely it's just out of stupidity that they don't care. It's distinctly possible. Then there's the other side of it too. There's people who want to get a reaction out of you. Sociopathic, narcissistic, and psychopathic personalities, which want to get a reaction out of what they're saying to you on the internet. Typically, these people in real life are very timid, very shy. They don't have a lot to say normally, and they're very, very, very laid back. Now, these people tend not to be as that laid back on the internet. They're more, they give them more of a voice because of the anonymity involved on the internet. Admittedly, there's some stuff that I can definitely say is funny and I can laugh at, and I mean, I can definitely laugh at a few things and have a good sense of myself, and oh, fuck, that's funny. I found that fucking hilarious. Yeah. The other side of it too is there's times where I can't laugh at shit, especially when it involves pedophilia or anything of that nature. Pedophilia is definitely not a joke and never will be. Not the fact that it's not just a joke, but the fact that there's a lot of social media uprising which has been happening. I think it's in Canada and stuff like that, from what I'm seeing in some of these places and things of that nature, which it's not all over the world that it's happening, but there is a lot of parts of the world where it's happening, where people are admitting to being non-offending pedophiles and stuff like this. Supposedly non-offending. They're putting in tweets on Twitter. They're trying to normalise their pedophilia as as a sexual orientation, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? I'm like, seriously, I want to know what the fuck goes through people's minds in that sense of things. I really don't understand it. I can't get it, and it's just sick, and it's just sick and disgusting, and it's definitely a mental illness, and it's definitely something that needs to be combated. Do I believe that? I mean, neo-Nazism and all these different groups and cults and stuff like that. I mean, there's cults as well. You've got to consider that there's cults trying to, well, not all over the internet, but definitely on the dark web and things like that. There's cults that are trying to recruit and stuff like that, and they're trying to get people to come in, and they're trying to get new people into their groups and stuff like that to perpetuate their cult per se, and just not just perpetuate it, but build it up and make it stronger. I have also learned that there's a lot of shit that just, there's a lot of shit that you think, what the hell's going on with people's minds, that, they can't see clearly to this stuff or what it is, in essence of context. And you know what? Sometimes people don't want to know. They don't want to know the ultimate truth. They don't want to understand that the world has definitely turned to shit in some parts. And I'm not saying the entirety of the world's turned to shit, but there's definitely parts of it that have. Now, I've based my judgments on stuff that I've learned online. Not just online, but stuff that I know about different things. And generally how people react, things of that nature. You learn a lot from getting to know different people on the internet, and you learn that there is a certain attitude that males take towards females, and there is a misogyny, but I don't believe misogyny is everybody in the world, and I don't think it's a fully part of the world. I think it's just certain parts of the world that's, where it's, I don't know. Some people are talking about rape apologists and stuff like that. Like, rape is a very fickle subject too. I don't believe in that either. That's my point. That's fucked. I think rape is fucked. But I also think that there's certain things that aren't rape. You know what I mean? Making a flirtatious comment, getting to know someone, loving someone, that's not rape. You know what I mean? You find that the world is full of people who, they constantly want to say that they're a victim to this and they're a victim to that. Now, I'm not arguing that victims don't exist. What I'm arguing is what perception people have given of victims. I won't shame someone, but if they're not a victim of something, and they're simply just overly emotional about things, which that's just simply possible as well. There's plenty of people in here, psychological illnesses as a point of reference, especially somebody with schizophrenia. If you get too emotionally overactive, especially with mental issues, and there's a lot of people I notice in the world who, honestly, I feel they should have been diagnosed with some type of schizophrenic disorder, or possibly schizoaffective disorder, or possibly PTSD, or a combination of those conditions, because they seem to overreact at the drop of a hat. Now, not that there's anything wrong with that. I don't have a problem with people overreacting, but there's people who really overreact badly. And the truth is, it's easy to overreact with the world and the way it is. And, I'm not arguing that, but the emotion that we feel towards things and what's happening can be two different things. We can have an extremely overactive emotion about something and it not be as terrible as it supposedly went on to be, I've learned a lot from people over time. Like I have one friend, she always used to blame men for every single problem that she had. To be honest, it's not men's fault. It's simply your emotional overreaction that's the fault. And you should probably be on some type of psychiatric medication, to be honest. Now, I'm not saying everybody should be, and I don't think everybody should be on psychiatric medication. I think just some people should be. I don't particularly like psychiatric medication, but I have to take it anyway. So that's my point. I mean, I've had a few overreactions myself in certain situations in my life, and it's definitely added some complications to my life earlier. I had a bit of a breakdown before this. And I'll definitely say that there's been situations where my overreaction has been more than it should have been. Not just more than it should have been, but I have to change the battery in my camera. Hold on a second. I need to change the battery in my camera. Okay, sorry, I had to come back. Okay, let's try this again. Okay, so as somebody who understands what psychological reactions people have, especially my own reactions, I've had extreme overreactions, emotional overreactions. That's only because of my schizophrenia and my OCD, my PTSD, well, I don't think PTSD, probably just like freaking bipolar and my OCD and my Asperger's. I've definitely had overreactions, extreme overreactions to things where it's been so bad that I've had to go away for a couple of days or step away from the situation, to be honest. And that's the honest truth. What I think most people don't understand is when you're in that state of mind, or when people are in that state of mind, they don't seem to realise. And there's a lot of people that seem like they're in a psychotic state. Like you can tell they're in a psychotic state just from how they convey themselves, how they talk. Sometimes you can tell just by simply the way that they might be spouting unintelligent stuff or a combination of things. And these people are just so fucking full of fucking shit in the sense that they're yammering on about random shit that doesn't even make sense half the time, and some of it makes sense, some of it doesn't. And that's my point. What we don't seem to realise with psychological conditions is that there's varying degrees. Sometimes you can appear to be totally normal and totally sane, per se. But, underneath that all, you're a bundle of anxiety and a bundle of nerves, and you're pretty much just fucking always on edge. I've never been always on edge. Sometimes I can be, depending on the situation, but I'm not always on edge. That's the thing. Some people are. Some people are just always on edge, and that's all they ever seem to be. But the other side of it too is that psychological conditions can relate to a lot of different aspects of the psyche. It can relate to emotional. Anger issues can be one thing that somebody definitely has, especially with psychosis and things like that. A lot of the times it may appear that they're quite stable and, they're quite with it. Then other times it appears the opposite. For a while I broke out and I sort of broke out from reality and I was sort of disconnected from reality for a while. That's definitely something that can happen, especially with psychosis. And it can definitely show over time. I've also learned that there's definitely times where it's the opposite aspect of it, where people are inward. They're more inward and they're more tuned into themselves, per se. Hello, dog. Being tuned into yourself inwardly can be more scary because all you see is inward thoughts, and you have inward thoughts, and it can relate to voices, visual hallucinations, audio hallucinations, or audio hallucinant, just hearing voices and stuff like that, things of that nature. It can relate to what else? Bunch of stuff. I mean, that's the point. It doesn't just end at one thing that can be specifically your problem. What most people don't realise is that people can be in the midst of these conditions. And they can appear to be very stable, you know, very on the level and very good. What are you on, dog? Come here. Come here. Come here. I'll put you up on the bed. Come here. There you go. Leave that alone. Sit down. Sit. Sit. Sleep. Little bugger. You doing, eh? He's a pretty good dog most of the time. To be honest, he's kind of a therapy dog for me. I mean, since my sister brought him over, and he sort of, you know, when I'm feeling a bit depressed or down, or I'm feeling a particular way, he helps me focus on the world and just helps me focus on better things. I give him a bit of a pat and I feel better, you know, pretty much. He's just ruffling up the bed so I can go to sleep. What's wrong, Ray? Sit down. Sit. It's a good dog. But, what you got to realise though is the problem is that we live in a world where this stuff is not always recognised initially. Now, to be honest, there is a fine line between genius and insanity, and there always has been a fine line. There has always been a fine line between the insane rantings of somebody who's extremely intelligent and somebody who has schizophrenia, or possibly has schizophrenia and other mental conditions. And what'll happen is eventually at some point that person degenerates to a certain point with some mental illness and issues, especially with some situations, not all situations, but some situations. And there's definitely cases where that's been abundantly clear. And you see it all the line. You see it all the time online. People degenerating into common name calling and language and having a go at someone and being really nasty and stuff like that. The thing is, when that happens, normally somebody's quick to point it out. But we live in such a sensitive society that we're not quick to point out when somebody has a mental illness. Now, I don't think that everybody who's transgender or other types of genders and things like that has a mental illness, because there's definitely times where that's not the case. But there's also a lot of people out there who do have mental illness, and sometimes that can relate to transgender stuff. Sometimes it can relate to it. It doesn't always. Sometimes it can relate to it, sometimes it doesn't. And there's also people who appear extremely smart, but on the edge they're actually quite unstable. You know, unfortunately, this is just a side effect of society. A lot of the mental stresses we're placed under. You know, some people handle it quite well, but some people handle things really well. They handle the world quite well. They handle things around them. They handle people, and they do pretty well for themselves. There's also people who chuck the shits at random things as well for no reason. You know. But we do find a lot of the times with the internet that you can hide that more often than not. You can hide it more often than not. You can actually hide behind your own avatar or whatever, or combination of, or accounts that how many ever accounts you want to create, and you can go on a bit of a a run through and, you know, insult people and go after people and come up to people. Now, not all people are... I mean, I don't think everybody's mentally ill, but there's a lot of people I'm seeing in this world who definitely are not mentally well. Whether it's for abuse or other things that have happened to them. Now, that's exactly my point. I don't deny abuse or anything like that. I know it happens. It can be through mental abuse. It can be through physical abuse that happens to them when they're younger and things like that. My mum was definitely one of those people. She got she got schizophrenia from definitely being abused when she was younger. Not just that, but other stresses in her life and, you know, just generally being stressed out all the time and having a lot of anxiety. She had a lot of anxiety and stuff like that. And there's definitely people who handle it better than others. To be honest, there's a lot of people who handle it better than others. And the honest truth is, it's combating mental illness as a general thing, as a general plan. Combating mental illness can be hard because it's hard to tell if somebody's... Sometimes it's hard to tell because they don't necessarily tell the truth, or they lie about the mental illness because they want to cover it up because they don't want to seem like they're abnormal. And that's the truth about, especially, disabilities. Now, I've never thought of mental illness as a disability. I've thought of it as more of an ability thing. You've got more ability than most others, but you also run yourself into the ground a lot of times when you're doing stuff, and that can really, really fuck with you without realising it. Stresses of not getting enough sleep, illegal drugs can be sometimes a factor. Also, sometimes just other things like, for example, alcohol can be an issue too for some people. Mental health can be such a broad area with the different experiences that different people have. I've looked through the schizophrenia forums and I've seen plenty of people who just get angry because they're not getting attention, and simply because they're not getting attention they get the shits and they chuck the shits at people because of it. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, we all get the shits, but we've all got to be able to let back and find our mechanisms for coping. And I do have my coping mechanisms that I find work for me best, most of the time. And what I found from most experiences that I've had in my life is that it comes to when those coping mechanisms don't work, or they don't work at all. That's when the issue crops up, especially when it comes to mental illness. There's definitely things you can do that will help you focus better and help your mind focus better on things that are going on around you. It's hard if you've got full-blown hallucinations and like full-blown voices and stuff like that and things going on that are of that nature. And there's definitely things that affect people badly. But I also think there's things that don't. I mean, there's other things you got to consider that some people deal with stress. Everybody deals with stress differently. I tend to deal with stress as a direct head-on thing, or I avoid it. Sometimes I do avoid it, I admit. If I'm really stressed or there's something that's stressing me out, I'll avoid it completely and I just won't go near it, just for the time being until I've got my head back. But I mean, even normal people do that, to be honest. But schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, depression, anxiety, things like that, they can all hinder a lot of the things you do in life. Now, it's a bit different being for the internet, because, the internet has given a outlet for people with anxiety and other issues of that related type to express themselves better, to express who they are as a person, to put themselves forth and show people that they are a human being. Not just that, but it gives them the ability to show that they can be cognitive, they can be functional. We all definitely have depression from time to time. You can't avoid it in this world. And there's definitely people who... I mean, there's all different coping mechanisms that you can use, whether it's alcohol, cigarettes, weed, or what else is there? I mean, there's other drugs, but I would never do those drugs personally. I would never touch those in 100 years, because I know how detrimental and damaging they can be to your life. And that's the thing. What most people don't realise is that those things, those people, everybody finds a coping mechanism and they tend to use it. Sometimes it can be meditation as well. Meditation, calmness, calming yourself down, breaths, breathing techniques and stuff like that, and it can be a bunch of stuff that helps you. Medications do help. Not necessarily for everybody, because the truth is I've seen some people who are on full-blown medications. I've seen some people on like really, really high doses of medications. Like 600 milligrams of 600 something micrograms or something milligrams of medicine, and it doesn't even dent half their hallucinations and their psychosis and their voices and all the other stuff that they do. And it doesn't do anything to it. And that's kind of the thing. There's definitely those people out there, and there's definitely those people who medication doesn't seem to have any effect on how they feel. Not just that, it doesn't have any effect on them getting rid of hallucination or voices or whatever. There's also people that it does. It helps. It does help. I know, as I said, to a certain extent, medications do help me to some extent, not always. Sometimes medications help, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they help me sleep, sometimes they don't. It all depends on the medication, and it all depends on... it all depends on the person. Everybody's different. Everybody metabolizes everything different too. So that's another factor as well. If people have got a very fast metabolism and it goes through them pretty quick, that's the other factor as well. But see, some people can have a related psychosis to when they were abused. And when they're in that psychosis, all they can see is being abused, and that's all they see. Now, I definitely see people in the world who act like they're abused, when in fact they're not abused. It's just the fact that the psychosis is given, not act, but it gives them the perception that they're being abused right now by everybody around them. And it makes them fairly paranoid. And that's another thing too. Paranoia can be a big issue. You can be paranoid about people not liking you, about things not happening for you, or you can be paranoid that the world or the universe or something is against you or something like that, and that can definitely be fundamentally something that happens. And it's definitely something that you can't avoid either with psychosis. Speaking from personal experience, I've definitely had moments where I've been paranoid about things. And, I'm not paranoid about them all the time, but I admit that I've had moments where I've been paranoid. There's even some people who are paranoid about their medications working properly and stuff like that. There's that as well. And that's kind of the thing. Paranoia comes in all forms, whether it's paranoia of government, whether it's paranoia of something else. And we can all be pretty we can all have a degree of paranoia, but it's all to the degree of what it is and how it affects your daily life. If you feel like somebody's always following you or constantly after you, then obviously something is seriously wrong and you need to see a doctor. I won't necessarily say that trans people have that issue. There is obviously science to back up the fact that there is genders that people who get reassigned and get put into who have the wrong gender at birth, who obviously get into a situation where that's much worse for them, and they do ultimately end up in a situation where they've got to have their gender reassigned. I'm not arguing that, but maybe there's also some people that they might have multiple personality syndrome, multiple personality disorder, and they might have like a female personality. And that's something else that can happen as well. Most people don't realise that. It's also people who can be rageful, who can get pissed off, and then personality, as soon as they get rage and pissed off and annoyed, they get paranoid and they get fucking angry, and their personality totally changes and they're a totally different person. And it vastly comes down to the individual, I guess. It comes down to the individual. It comes down to people who experience psychosis firsthand, especially what it's like to deal with on a daily basis. Also got to consider that schizophrenia can be degenerative, so it can be worse. Some days it can be good, sometimes it can be shit, and it just depends on how you're feeling. But I've never had a problem with somebody who is a little bit crazy, like a little bit mad or insane, because I think insanity does add to a person's character. It adds to them as a person, because it definitely makes them think outside the box. You know, think outside the realm of possibility. And I've concluded, I guess you could say, from me studying psychology books and stuff like that, that sometimes doing this stuff, like, you know, just thinking about schizophrenia and all the stuff that relates to it, can help you. It can help you train your mind better. It can help you find more coping mechanisms. It can help you better understand things, not just that, but it can help you better understand the world and how psychotic illness can come to you and be shown in real life and even on the internet, for example. I definitely say the world's got a lot more psychotic than usual, with some people's, rants and stuff like that on the internet. It's definitely abundant. There's more people with that illness. But it can also be related to people not just having that illness, but people who feel it more, not just, but show it more outwardly than other people, you know? I definitely say that form of extremism is if somebody doesn't have the same belief as you, you want to kill them. That's sort of just rather fucked. I don't understand that. I really don't get why people have to be so that, you know, that forceful, especially with people. I mean, you got to realise you're not going to change people's minds. And it's kind of the thing that people don't get. There's definitely a lot of stuff that goes on in this world that relates to psychotic illness. Psychotic illness can be an abundance of things. It can be related to your perception of the world. It can be related to reality. It can sometimes be related to other things that you may or may not do. Sometimes mannerisms, certain things that you may say as well. General beliefs sometimes that can relate to that as well. So psychiatric illness can relate to that. It's kind of, as a schizophrenic, you get past it, but you get past it to a degree. You don't get past it fully all the time, because there's certain times where you just feel like you just can't function, and you just get up and say, no, I'm not even getting out of bed today. I'm not even going to fathom trying to function today. And that's not the truth. I've also concluded, I guess, in the long run, that people like myself definitely do have issues with it, but, you know, I've also learned a lot of things about myself, about what works best for me, what doesn't, things of that nature. And it's definitely, you know, like, anyway, this is sort of a personal blog anyway. I'll just go on about a couple of things just relating to that and what I see in the world anyway and what I perceive. So, you know, it's all good. I'll leave it there anyway. Thank you very much. Stay tuned. Follow me on Twitter. Follow me on my other social media if you like. If you're interested in some of my stuff, I also build and repair computers for a living as well. So if you're interested in some of that stuff, just feel free to catch up with some of that stuff. So yeah, it's definitely interesting. Also play games on Twitch as well and things like that. So yeah, it's definitely out there. Stay tuned anyway. I'll definitely have some more content. I don't know what it's going to be. Depends on when the mood strikes me to sort of do these types of videos and stuff like that and be more forward with them and everything else. Alright, thank you very much and catch you. Bye.